Right then, off we go. Now, this is a painting that I think I uploaded to YouTube probably just over a week ago. I'm going to just check on the computer because I honestly can't remember. Yes, 1 week ago. It's had a nice chunk of views, about 18,000 I think, which is very good. Thank you. And what I'm going to do now it's dried off is just do something with that white in the landscape, and also because it's dry enough now, because I used alkyd, which dries very quickly. There's a few sticky bits in the sky, but I'm not really going to worry about them too much. So I'm going to sit down for this so that the camera hopefully will look over my shoulder without me getting in the way too much. So I'm just going to turn the viewfinder on the camera so that I can actually see what's going on. This is going to be done very loosely. First thing I'll do, let me get in front of the camera. Hopefully there's no shadow from me. And I think I've positioned it so you should probably just see my arm. That's great. Now, so I've got yellow ochre. Again, my fancy palette, plastic plate. Very, very cheap brush. This comes from a shop called Cultura in France. It's a very rough brush, very, very cheap. And yellow ochre, another one of my favourite colours. I don't think, well, there are some colours I really don't like. I don't like. I'm not over keen on alizarin crimson. I remember when I was in college, and the tutor was telling me the truth. He said, in your entire life you may only need one tube of alizarin crimson, because once you put it on the painting you'll never get rid of it. And I think he was right. It's a very powerful colour. The other one I don't use at all is Viridian Green. Selection of palette knives. I'll be using probably this one in a few minutes to do some distant fields across here. Once I've got the landscape done, I'm going to go back over the sky and add a few more colours to that. I don't think I'll need the square-ended one. Somebody asked me on YouTube what are the dimensions of these and where can I get them. Well, you can get them the same place you get the others. Any art supply shop will sell these. It's about, I don't know, 10 millimeters by whatever that is, 35 maybe. And I've got 3 of these. Well, actually I've got another 4 like another one like this, but it's tiny. It's incredibly small, and it's I really haven't found a use for it. It's absolutely minuscule little palette knife, but I hardly use it. I prefer to use the largest, which is this one, and that is the one I'll be using. So the other's out the way. I'm just going to adjust my I've got a drawer down here. You can't see it. There's a drawer sticking out the front of the easel, so I just push that in a little bit. Now, so first thing is to just chuck on some yellow ochre, because this is I guess sort of like the glazing stage. This is going on very, very, very loosely. These trees here, all the way along here, these are all basically dry, completely dry to touch. So whatever I'm doing here won't affect them at all. So let's put a little bit there, a little bit here. That's probably enough there. I'm after the sort of harvest time or pre-harvest time sort of look. Let's just put a little tiny stain in there. Quite a lot of medium. As I said, it's alkyd, very fast drying, lovely stuff, tastes delicious, obviously not really, but you know. So a little bit more there, just basically filling up the white bits. This doesn't mean to say that there won't be more of this colour down here. There may even be another colour later, I'm not sure. I'm just going to play it by ear. Okay, so there's actually quite a fast effect. And some of this stuff I'll be on a new roll in a minute. This one isn't going to last long. So the next stage is to just get the paper, make it into a little roll like that, quite loose. The only reason I do that rather than this, you know, with like a ball of tissue, is so that I can see better. So for instance here, if I just rub through that, you may be able to see, I hope, that that is making some of this yellow fractionally lighter. Not really worried about detail, as you know, hopefully. I don't do detail anymore. I spent my life doing detail, and it gets tiresome after a while. I just want to get the effect as quickly as possible. So this stuff here, you see that's like a round blob there, which obviously it wouldn't look like that in nature. So if I wipe above it and below it, you can see it completely changes the shape to a more fieldy look. If that's probably a word that's never been used. Fieldy. It looks fieldy. Okay, so that's sort of, I'm comfortable with that at the moment. Let's just take a little bit off the trees here, just so that I don't have to fight the yellow ochre when I start going over this with a little bit more sap green, which I will be doing in a few seconds. So there we are. There's a quick summer field sort of harvesty time look. The next stage now is to go back on that with a little bit of sap green, and I'm going to use what's called a filbert brush. I've got several filberts here. It's one of my favourite shapes of brush. They are perfect for what I'm about to do. Okay, these are both filberts. These are called black hogs, and they come from Jackson's of London. They're really good brushes. They are almost indestructible. I mean, obviously you've got to clean it to keep it in good condition, but you tend not to get bristles coming out of these brushes. I've had these for quite a few years now, and I just don't have a problem with them. So if you're doing distant trees, or an impression of, like, you know, because a tree, let's face it, a tree in the distance is a blob, and it's like a one-touch brush. You can get a really nice effect quickly. So I'm going to start working with the smaller one first. Actually, no, a slight change of mind here. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to go to my palette knife. I'm just going to put a few streaks across there, just to give the impression of distant fields. And this is a really nice effect. I'm going to try and zoom in so you can see what's going on. This is a completely new camera I'm using here, and it's big and heavy, and it may wobble a bit when I do this, but I'm going to attempt to find the button without looking at it, and try and zoom in so that you can see a little bit of close-up. It's a little bit better. So I'm just going to work on this bit here. So here we go, and all it is just the odd streak like that, because obviously when you're looking at fields, if a field is in the distance, you're going to see it in profile. As it gets closer to you, it's going to slope more because it gets deeper. That's the theory behind this. It does work, it's not just a theory. So again, a few more, just a few sort of hints of distant fields. You could go over them with a bit of white. I do that sometimes because it adds a bit of twinkle to the picture. So a few more there, one maybe here, and it's picking up also on the bumps in the paint, which are quite accidental, but they do give a nice effect, so I'm not going to worry about them. Maybe one here, a little bit of extra light just there, just to yeah, just to give it a bit of sparkle. And over here, the top edge of that field could have a bit of stronger colour, just there. And perhaps through here. And always remember, don't just work within the constraints of your canvas. You must take anything like this off the edge. It won't look natural unless you do that. So let's just continue that across here without me getting in the way, if I can do it. So let's just I'm literally just throwing these on, really. I'm not trying to be careful because I want to cover a few more things in this video. So and I also don't want to make the video too long. It seems that most of you like my long videos. I'm going to zoom out again and just so you can get a better overview. Just a little bit more there. Okay. And so as you can see, that's going off the edge there, and over this side I want to do the same. Just literally lines. There we go. It's a very, very quick effect. The minute you try to be too careful on this sort of thing, because it is not a detailed painting, it's a tonalist painting, and I'm after, as I say always in my videos, and please let me know if I get boring, I'm after the illusion and the feeling of something rather than the detail of something. So just have a bit more paint just there. Okay, now this will have a lot more work done on it before the end of the painting, but I'm going to go as fast as I can, just so that nobody falls asleep. So I've had it with that brush now. That's going to get stuck in a pot over there. So I'm going to go back to a nice blob of sap green. Very small amount of liquid. I don't want much. I want it to be quite strong. Okay, now let's see what we can do with this. I'm going to strengthen up some of the trees down here, literally just darken them right up because I just like that effect really. But as I come to the edge of the tree, I want to smudge it into the background. I don't want any really crisp lines because, well, nature just isn't like that. It's not in my paintings anyway. And I think actually before I go on, I'm going to move a few things. Sorry about this. This is one of the disadvantages of painting and talking at the same time. I want to get a good clear space at the bottom here so I can hold my brush like this. As soon as I've got that done, I'll reset the camera and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, basically all I've done here is and it's one of the reasons I like these easels. There's a drawer here which you can probably see me, or maybe you can't see me pulling out. There, you can see that more clearly now. So this drawer here, you see, normally I would put my palette on that, but I want it out the way so that I've got room here to do this with the brush. So here's my brush. I don't want to paint like that, I want to paint like this. And to do that, obviously, I can't have that sticking out. So it just makes life easier, and I can see over the top of the brush clearly and see what sort of shapes I'm making with these trees. I hope that made sense. So here I'm going to just... one of the things with trees, it also applies to clouds, is that whatever shapes you make on those trees, don't repeat. Now, if it's a line of trees that are planted on a grid, and you get that a lot in France, I'm sure you get it in other countries too, but they tend to do it here because they grow these trees where the trunks are used to make boxes for camembert cheese. So what they want is uniformity. This is nothing to do with anything like that. This is wild countryside. And trees, if you really study trees, the same as clouds, you don't get repetitive shapes. If you repeat shapes, it will not look right. If you're painting a picture that is stylized to a sort of slightly more modern look, then fine, if that's the look you want. But I'm not after that. I'm after nature in its rawest sense, I hope, anyway. And frankly, nature does what it wants. It does not organize itself when it's doing this sort of, when I say it's doing this, when nature is like this, the trees, frankly, in the countryside, not many of them actually get pruned. So it's just wild. It just does its own thing. These are quite rebellious trees. I'm using the yellow ochre also in the background of the field to mix with the green. Now that gives me the effect of a little bit of light hitting the edge of a tree. In this there are some accidents, and we all know about accidents in painting. Some of them actually look pretty good. So I don't want to tidy anything up. For instance, here my brush has made some little dark shapes there. Now they look okay, so I'll leave them. Not going to take them off. If they look vaguely like a tree trunk, I'm more than happy to keep them. And then here, a little tree there, I'm hardly touching the surface. I'm not picking up a lot of the yellow ochre here, a little trace on the edge, but yellow ochre and sap green actually go very well together. They seem to complement each other nicely. I don't mean like complementing colours in the normal sense of the word. They mix together, they transform together well. So here I've got a shape which is basically a stain. When I painted this tree here, I barely touched the surface, so I've got a very faint shape of a tree there, and I'm going to strengthen it up a bit. And the shapes that I made when I chucked the paint on there are actually shapes that I quite like. I'll use some of them and I'll leave some in, so it looks as though there's light coming through the tree there. So I've got a dark bit on the edge and then a little bit of light in there which I haven't really touched, so I'll just leave it. The big rule I tell everyone, if it looks good, stop. Look at it, assess it. If after a while you think, no, it doesn't look good, then change it. But don't be in a rush to make things too tidy too quickly. Always try and get that discipline where you look at it and you think, nope, going the wrong way, rather than keep piling on lots and lots of brush strokes and making it look really muddy. Stop, stand back, assess, then go in and do whatever it is you need to do to change it. So over here I've got some interesting shapes down in the corner there. I'm going to zoom the camera in a little bit more just to give you a little bit better idea what's going on. Okay, a little bit of adjustment there, and let's see what we can do in this area. This looks like well, it could be just a very thick hedge line between this field and this field coming towards you. Don't know, it could be a wood, but I'm going to keep it simple. What I want to do is to get people to look up here, look at the corn colour, and also in a minute I want them to look at the sky. The sky, I'm going to put some red in that. So I'll just fiddle around for a moment with these trees a little bit more. If this video doesn't go on too long, I'm going to try to show you how I update another painting I worked on recently. It depends. I don't want to make the video too long because of time, and also there's possibly a thunderstorm brewing outside, and if we do get a thunderstorm here, it's usually best to switch off the electrics for a while just in case it all blows up. Okay, so over here, see, now this brush makes that sort of tree. A little bit there. I want to keep all that quite subtle in that part of the painting, just literally shapes and shadows, because I want to direct where the viewer goes. So nice and simple. There are some light bits in between the darks here, and I hope this camera is picking that up. It looks as though it is in the viewfinder. A bit more there, just to sort of consolidate the shapes a little bit, make it interesting on the edge. That's what's called a stopper, which is there to stop people looking out of the picture. And I think a little bit below that line there is a little bit, let's follow the line to the edge. We don't want that. So I'll just put a few shapes here just to get people to linger. I like it when people linger. Okay, now down here there's some quite interesting colours in there, and I think actually before I go on with the green, I might just sort of put a few little bits of texture on that field, just to make it even more interesting, or I hope anyway, rather than it just being too flat. The other thing you can do is you can get, for instance, your brush handle, and you can just put a few scrape marks in the paint just to give it a little something that people may look at and think, what the heck's that? That's completely wrong. So I'm going to, well actually I don't need to take it off, I can just touch it, and actually it might add a bit of, yeah, a little bit more interest in there. I think that's actually, just define that edge a little bit there, as if the light is catching it. And also over this side, see, if I do something like that, which means that light is hitting that, then a bit of light could have come through here. So rather than that just stopping there, I will quite often do this so that it continues. Now you see how the eye looks at this and thinks, oh, maybe I could walk around there. Maybe there's actually a break. These trees don't go all the way up there. It's just giving someone else, it's just giving someone somewhere else to go in your painting. So I'm going to increase that intensity just a touch. And then also the same this side, just to connect the two a little bit more. So the odd bump and scrape in a painting can actually add to it. You know, you add texture, you add interest. You have to tantalize the viewer's eye. A little bit more there. Over here, I think I might leave that. I'm reasonably happy with that. Here, just a few little strokes just to debump it a bit. Now this line of trees here, I've got a dark shape there, and there. So what I'm tempted to do is just a touch in there between each of these and a few dots, just to give a little bit more depth through there, and I think that works, yeah. So over here again, bit more light there, bit more there. It connects the line, and that is another way to keep interest in your painting. This is my second video now using the talk while I paint method. I'm actually finding it a lot easier because sometimes I don't worry about what I'm going to paint. That just always seems to be quite automatic. But sometimes I will make a video and I'll have it already edited, and then the next day after I've made the video I used to do the voice, and I would lie awake sometimes agonizing, what the heck am I going to talk about? There's only so many times I can tell you about some funny things that have happened in my life, and believe me, there's been some strange stuff. Not keen on that now, so if you're not keen, take it off. So I'm just going to put my brushes on the drawer. Yeah, some very strange things in my life have happened. It's been interesting so far. So I'll come on to that in a minute once we get past the serious stuff. Okay, so I'm going to smudge the edge of this. And do I like that yet? No, I don't. So I'm going to get a little bit of alkyd on the tissue, just to sort of wipe in there a bit, just to make some more shapes. I don't want it to be too I don't know, too contrived, that shadow there, and it's looking a little bit strange just here on the end. I think I might put a bit more green on that, and then just wipe it a bit more just to get some kind of, that's better, yeah, or is it? I might come back to that. So I'm going to start working up here now, and I'm going to get some red on the sky. Spotted a hair there which has dried into the paint. Doesn't really matter because this painting is not for sale. It's just a demo picture. In fact, I might even paint over it. You never know. So along here, I think I want to make this line a little bit more interesting. It's a little bit grubby. And I don't like grubby. It looks probably okay on the video, but I'm going to just adjust the camera again, and then I'll come back when I've got it in the right position. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to work along the horizon here. I'm going to use royal blue. Now, this is royal blue, that one at the top there. Lovely colour. Lots and lots of people have asked me about this, and if you want the exact one that I'm using, I will put a link in my info box to Jackson's of London. You can buy it online. It seems that nobody in America can find this colour. Now, it doesn't matter. If you can't find the exact colour, you can use ultramarine with a bit of white in it, and you'll get almost the same colour. However, it is wonderful, and it's one of those things that seems to have been made for skies. I've got to the point where I like it so much I'm considering sandwiches just with this. Forget the butter, forget the margarine, just royal blue sandwiches. Yum yum. I don't recommend that. It's okay. Now, it's an incredible colour, as I say. Anyway, the link will be in my info box. Don't forget, it's Jackson's of London. I don't get paid for telling you this. It's just that I like the company. They've supplied me with some interesting stuff. In fact, they asked me to paint a picture for them, which I did. It's somewhere in my list of videos, where I painted a landscape with music going, and I think most of it was speeded up. It's a few years ago now, but they sent a truck to France with big canvases and paint and brushes, and in fact these Black Hog brushes, that's one of the ones they sent me, and they're still going strong. It's a few years ago now, so yeah, excellent company, so highly recommended. The other colour, of course, and that is the same company where I get my sap green, and it's a particular green. Sap green, you see, you can buy sap green made by all the manufacturers, but they're all slightly different. The reason I use Jackson's sap green is because it's dark. If you have a sap green that's not too dark, just add a bit of Payne's grey to it. So this is blue straight from the tube. Okay, so it doesn't matter what happens to the sky, there's going to be big changes in a minute. So I'm just going to put a line of that along there. Here's a little tip for you. If you're adding light along a horizon, I've said this before obviously, but if you're adding light along the horizon, do not make the light follow the contours. The light is a separate thing behind the landscape. The light will be just straight across. The landscape is the thing that's doing the bumpy stuff. So your light behind it has to be level. I don't mean horizontal. It can all be at that angle if you want, but it must not follow the contours of the land. It won't look right. So I'm going to have mine dropping down slightly on the left here, but from this line across to the right, it must not do that, it must go straight through. The reason I'm putting this on here is so that I can then work on the horizon line again and start to meld it into the sky. I'll just take away that hump that I put there, and in fact just a little bit of paper along the top edge there, you wouldn't really know that that's been added later. It's just to give me a little bit of fluid paint so that I can start to do the next stage, which I think I will use the same brush, and as usual, there we go again, repeating, no turpentine, just wipe it. That's all it is. Just wipe off the surplus paint. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit left on there, and in fact if there is, it can add a little bit of interest to your painting. So plenty of wiping, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to use, people keep asking me to show them how I mix paint. Well, as I usually until I actually get one of my normal palettes working, one of these things that needs a good scrape, I'll be using these until I've run out. So I've got sap green, royal blue, a bit of white here. So I'm going to take some of this blue, mix it with the green. There's nothing mysterious going on here. Now what that gives you is a very, very nice distant hill colour. Because I've put the blue on here, I could have added white, doesn't matter, but I decided to add blue. It depends how light you want your horizon. I may even go for a slightly dark horizon, because there's that wonderful effect you get when you get the landscape and the sky is dark next to a lit landscape. That's the effect you get when you look at a hill in the distance, and it looks closer to you than it would normally look, and it's to do with the amount of sunlight that's hitting the hill. So here, okay, that's the sort of colour I've got. It's like a greeny, bluey, grey colour, if you want it to sound technical. And all I'm going to do now is just add some of that to the horizon, just to soften some of these edges a little bit, and it will make it look more distant. So when I've finished doing this colour, I will get some stronger sap green and start re-establishing some shapes. So there we go, just along the edge, just to make it a little bit mysterious. Okay, now as I get to here, because it's mixing with the blue, it's losing its intensity. So a quick wipe, a little bit more green into the blue, and then carry on. You notice that what I'm not doing is that. Okay, what I'm doing is a bit here, a bit there, a bit there, a little bump here, and then maybe a little bit of movement that way, just to get the textures to actually start singing their song, because that's what they're doing. That thing is to learn how to hear the song. So you just keep your eye on what's happening. If you like something and it looks okay, move somewhere else. I'm going to just put a sort of bit more of a whatever it is there. And then over to the left, I'm not going to do much on the left here because I'm going to be probably darkening the sky right down. My light is, I guess, coming down this way, probably behind that cloud even, possibly, don't know. I don't worry about that too much because to me, when I look at a landscape, the light, even when there's strong light in one place, light does bounce around all over the place. It's not like it hitting buildings and all, because buildings have hard edges on them, and that's another paper roll finished. Landscape is a little bit different because there are so many diverse shapes in the landscape. The light will bounce everywhere, and of course that's one of the things that makes it so charming and interesting, I think. Through here, below this colour, now I'm going to start strengthening a few of these colours. It's a bit brown. Does it look brown in my camera? A little bit of brown. So I'm going to just add a bit of green to it just to break it up, and a few little random shapes which you, the viewer, will be able to interpret in any way that you feel you want to. So, and again, all I'm doing with this, I'm just literally touching the edge there just to get a tiny bit of paint on the brush, and just the odd touch every now and then just to make it interesting. A few little bits there, nothing much. There's a bit of green up in the sky, so what I might do is I might use that. Can you actually see it? I think you probably can. Just here up in the sky there's some sort of little traces of green from when I did the original painting. So I'm going to actually use them and possibly bring that up on that side just a tad till it gets interesting. So what I'm doing, every mark I make now, I'm assessing whether I should keep it or not, and I think that's probably looking okay there. And a quick wipe of the brush, a little bit more paint on it, and then just a hint of a slope there coming down the side of a hill. Okay, there. Now I think I like that. Through here there's lots of a neutral brown, slightly reddy brown colour. I'm just going to add some bits of green into it and blue. Okay, a little bit more there. Just shapes, just to sort of get the viewer's brain jumping. There's some light bits through there where the canvas is showing through, and I think I'll probably keep them. Quite like them, but I'm going to just put a little bit of a bump or two there. And I don't like that expanse of nothing here. I mean, I could like it. What I could do is I could make that more intense. So perhaps I'll leave that for now, and I'll come to it if I decide later. So this is all part of the discipline thing. Don't be in a rush to eliminate something. Just take your time, see how you feel, and you see, if I put a whole load of light paint there and then I decide no, I don't like that, I want to put trees, then I've got to scoop off the paint to get the trees back on. I don't really want to do that, so I'd rather give myself a few options, but I will just darken the bottom edge just a touch there. And I think that's almost it now for the landscape, except over here where I think that just needs a few defining shapes there. I think that'll look good. Okay. So you can see what I mean about these filberts. This is a bit of a flat-ended filbert. The best really are the round type, like so. You can see the difference much sort of more. And of course filbert, of course, is named after a hazelnut. I'm sure a lot of you know that, but that's where the name comes from. Now, okay, do I need anything there? Don't know that I do. I think they connect quite well, but perhaps just a little bit of something there. So all these shapes along here are nice and random. There's nothing there that really repeats, and you'll just have to trust me on that one. If you paint a sky and you do a nice bobbly sky, and then you think, yep, I'll do another one the same because I like it, you'll end up on the road to painting disaster. So, am I happy with the foreground? I think so. Yep, sky time. Okay, to the sky. Now, I'm going to use Japanese red. This is it's a really nice red. You could use cadmium. Cadmium contains a little bit more blue, and this one is slightly on the, well, how can I put it? It's almost like primary red actually, but don't really need a lot, just a little slug like that. And I'm going to generally apply that to the sky, and then I'm going to wipe it, and then I'm going to go over it with one of my big brushes, if I can find one that I've actually remembered to clean. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. I'm going to add a little bit of alkyd to the Japanese red, but not from that bottle. Let's try another bottle. This is the alkyd, and I hope that will be in focus. It's good stuff. Lovely aroma. Okay. And a big brush. Well, I say big. Not the biggest. But I did get some new ones the other day because I want this to be a clean brush. So there's one there, which of course you can't see because I'm over here mumbling to myself, and I just need to find my really big brush. That one will do. Okay, I might not need it actually. This what I'm talking about is this one basically. That's for the smoothing, that's for the application of the Japanese red. And again, no mystery. Nice big glob of alkyd, Japanese red, really bright. And to answer one of the questions I get rained upon me, not that I'm complaining, I like people asking me questions, it's okay. But what consistency do I mix my glazes to? And it's dead simple. Think of maple syrup. If you're watching this, you're possibly an American. Most of the people who follow my videos, strangely enough, are in America. There's a few in England, but maybe it's just because America's bigger. There's going to be a higher number. And I'm glad you're here, by the way. Yeah, so there we are. So it's like maple syrup, but not to the point where if I do that, I don't want it dripping off the brush. If you get that, you could have a problem as you're applying this because you'll get drips, obviously. If you do want your glaze to be incredibly thin, by all means make it so that it drips, but as soon as you've applied it and got it where you want, you need to work quite quickly. Lay the canvas or board down so that you don't get any streaks. So this is the bit that sometimes when I show my students, they shudder because they look at it and they think, oh my god, what's going on? But basically it doesn't matter. So okay, so we just apply a whole load of red across here. I'm not going too far down because I don't want to actually interfere with the work I've just done there. I just want it sort of close, and I'm just going to add a few bits of red, and I think down this side of the clouds, because the light's coming that way generally. It tends to in my paintings. Depends how I feel. But by that I don't mean that sometimes I wake up in the morning and I think, today all my light will come from the left. It changes as you work through the picture, and whatever looks good. Something I learned a long time ago when I was learning painting. I was in a lecture in my college, and one of the tutors said something about artistic license. Basically, artistic license means if it looks good, back off. If it doesn't look good, wipe it off. Start again. So there we go. Bit of red totally transforms the sky really quickly. So now that I've got that on there, I'm going to start working downwards. If I'm working to a horizon down here, I'm not going to use the brush that way. I'm going to use it this way because I want to know where I've actually come down to. Let me just check I'm not in the way. Good. So I'm just literally having a little shudder with the brush along the horizon so that I don't go too far. And I really hope my shoulder isn't in the way, but at the moment I can't check. There we go. There we are. So I've got the little bit of light along the horizon. It's a little bit, can you actually see? It does look a little bit as though I'm following the landscape, which of course I was telling you not to do. So I'm going to work over that and just flatten it a bit, because I certainly don't want that effect. It completely ruins a painting. Now, I think bump eliminated, and I may even go back in a minute to the horizon and work up into the sky. See how it feels in a moment. So we've got light underneath here. We've got, I beg your pardon, shadow, a reddish shadow underneath here. We've got light coming from that direction. Up here, I might actually just put a little bit of a red stain in that. There's hardly any paint going on, but just enough to make it interesting. I'll zoom in on that later so that you can see it better. There's been a lot of thunderstorms here lately, and it's very inspiring, actually. I love a good storm, so I'm just putting in a few. All this stuff that I'm doing here, I hope will become evident on the video when it's uploaded. But I'm just notice here that I'm using the brush to follow the shapes. I'm not doing this or this because the sky isn't doing that. The sky is doing that. So what you have to do is imagine it's almost like conducting an orchestra, following the flow of the shapes in the picture, back and forth, as boldly as you can do it. Really let rip. And you see, if you make, here's something that you might find interesting. If I make a mark like that, it's actually pretty boring. If I, no, that didn't make sense. Let's start again. If I'm trying to paint this sweep and this feeling coming up here, and I'm basically doing that, it doesn't actually have any character. What I want is my brush stroke to have a little bit of pizzazz. So that's why I will do this occasionally, so that the marks that are put on there have a little bit of life in them. And it also gives the feeling that you did it in one go, which always seems to impress potential buyers. So, paper. What I want to do now is soften that edge just a little bit. I'm not sure I will even use the big brush. I might just do it all with paper. So I'm just going to sort of work in a circular motion using a part of the paper that is not textured. This is reasonably flat. There is a texture in the paper, but it's almost nothing. I want that rather than this side, which is all bumpy. So I want the smooth side. I'm just literally wiping away on any edges that I think look a bit too sudden. There's a few sudden bits in there that I'm not keen on, so I'm going to find another bit of smooth paper, same piece, just folded over, and a little bit of alkyd, and just stroke it into that just to loosen up the paint, because the alkyd is like a solvent when it's wet, and this is another reason why you don't need to use turpentine. The alkyd becomes the solvent, or the oil would become the solvent depending on what you're using. I've just spotted a hair on the painting which has been there since I painted it, so I'm just going to eliminate it, and it's been on there too long to flick off with a brush, so I'm just going to give it a hard time. There we are. Gone. Now there's a mark left. What you can do, you can either use one of these just to burnish it a little bit, like so, or you can use your fingernail. I tend to go for the fingernail. There we go. There are some bumps in the paint here, but that's just the painting that was originally on the picture. So I think now a little bit more alkyd and a little bit more wiping in there, and we'll see how that looks. And we may be almost there with the actual sky, and few little bits in there where the paint has caught between brush strokes. I just want to soften them a little bit. Maybe a little line through there, softening. This may not actually be the end of this painting. You may think, oh well, that looks pretty finished, but you know, there are times when I do this and I look at the painting over several months, sometimes even years, and I'll go back to it because something's niggling. I don't like to be niggled. Okay, I'm going to just put a little bit of light through there. If there was a society for the prevention of niggling, I would be the founding member, I think. Or at least I would be in the club. So, I think a little bit of light across there is quite nice. Yep. Now, what else should we do? Right, so I'm going to go back to the horizon, and then I think that'll be it. Unless I change my mind, of course. And I'm known for doing that very suddenly sometimes. Now, a bit of a line that way, doesn't really matter. Okay, just thinking out loud here now. I'm going to put a bit more red there, just to scrub the paint in a little bit, and then give it another wipe. So I'm at this point, you see, now as I wipe, I'm exercising what I've been preaching. Do you wipe? Wait, look at it. Is it a good wipe? Is it a bad wipe? It wasn't a particularly good wipe, so I'm going to do a few more. There we are. And a little bit there. You've got to filter your wipes. So up here, I think, a little bit of softening there. Right, I think that is probably it with the sky. So I'm going to go back along my horizon now. I may even lose the light bit here. I've got it on there, obviously, but I may work the horizon up a little bit. That may give a little bit more distance. So we'll see how that goes. Right then, back to the horizon, and that, once I've done that, that'll be it for this video. So I'm using my Black Hog filbert again, and I'm just going to use a mixture of, same as before really, sap green with a little bit of royal blue thrown in, and I'm going to lift the horizon a bit. I quite like this dark horizon today rather than a light one. Excuse me while I just get my wiring. I'm wearing one of these microphone things that hopefully is working. Wouldn't it be disastrous if I got to the end and it hadn't picked anything up? That's actually happened before with my old camera. I think I thought I'd switched it on, did a painting, and of course I didn't. Or I did, maybe I did the first few minutes, and then I paused or switched it off to do something, and then when I came back I forgot to put it back on again. But that's you know, part of being a little bit eccentric, I think. Okay, so I've got this red band here. I've also got the blue. Now I'm not sure that I really like that blue. It's a little, I don't know, there's something about it. And I'm going to eliminate it. And let's see what happens. Maybe a total disaster. Okay, so let's see how this looks. This is one of the things I really like about oil paint, is you get all these chances to get something right. Particularly good for beginners. Well, no, I don't mean it like that. I mean, actually, if you're going to be a watercolorist, you probably know at a young age that watercolor is your thing. I've done a lot of watercolor and I can teach it. There's no problem. I can teach it, but I struggle with it frantically. I don't know. There's just something about oil that I find irresistible. I don't know, maybe it's the texture of the oil, or I don't know, the strength of the colours. I know you can get quite intense watercolours, some amazing watercolour artists around, but I'm not one of them. I've done it for illustrations for magazines in the past, quite a few times, and They were okay because they were like tight little pictures that had more drawing than colour. It was more of a wash that was just put into it. And interesting how this is showing up on the video. This is the first time I've used this new camera for this sort of, well, for a full video. In fact, it only arrived the other day, and I've been playing with all the buttons and whistles on it just to get an idea what it can do. And the colour quality seems to be good, and also the automatic, it doesn't change in exposure when I move into the picture. If I put something light like my hand, it doesn't affect the colour of the video too much. Anyway, it's a nice toy to play with when I'm not painting. Okay, so I'm knocking off some of that pale green just by putting some dark shapes in there. Nothing special, just a few blobs. See how that looks? Yeah, it's sort of okay-ish. Not ecstatic about it, but it'll do. Now, I'm going to give the brush a little bit of a wipe, and I'm going to just soften that top edge a little bit so that it's really quite vague about how these two come together. I might even go over it with the big brush. When I say the big brush, I mean the big brush, the very big brush, which I've put down somewhere. I'll find it in a minute. And just to sort of blur it back, that might be an interesting effect. Never be afraid to experiment. You know, one of the things about painting like this, where I'm adding glazes, you may get to the end of the day and you'll look at something like this and you think, well, I don't really like what I did. As long as if you're using like an oil that doesn't have a drying agent in it, or if you're not using alkyd, which has 5 hours, there's no problem with just wiping it off. Go back to where you were and just start again. It's some people might have trouble with it, thinking, "Oh my God, I've done all that work. I can't possibly wipe it off." But actually, you might be doing yourself a big favour, because if you're not happy and you don't wipe it off and give it another go, you could end up with something that is going to look dreadful, and we don't want that. So let's avoid that at all costs. I've sort of made that look a bit vague now, and this pale greeny colour through here, that could be an interesting effect. I want to break that bit up though. I want to put something there. In fact, there's a little something else there, I think, just to break up that light line that's going through, because I don't really want it. And if you have something and you don't want it, eliminate it. There we are, lots of interesting little bumps and things in there, just to, I don't know how to explain it really, just to give the eye something to feast upon. It may be that in amongst all this it needs a little something else too. I'm going to have a quick play in a minute just to see what happens if I add some tiny slithers of this colour into that, just for the fun of it really. As I said, this is one of those paintings that I will never sell. It's purely for demonstration purposes. It may end up being painted over, don't know, we'll see. But it's you know, you can recycle. If you're learning to paint and you think, oh, it's going to be so expensive, by the time I get any good at it I will have used so many canvases. Well, you don't actually need to do that. You can, well, first of all, you don't need to paint on canvas. I'm only painting on this because it was just lying around. I like painting on plywood, and you can just recycle. Just if you produce a painting and it looked like complete rubbish, photograph it so you've got a record of it. But it doesn't mean to say you have to keep it. You can just ditch it, cover it up with gesso when it's completely dry. You only gesso over a painting when it's bone dry, and then just paint another picture over the top. Nothing wrong with that at all. I did that many times when I was a student because lack of funds, basically. Okay, so through here I've got some of these streaks across here. I'm gonna add a few more a little bit higher up, just the odd touch, just in there, just to sort of see if it works. I mean, I know it'll work really because I've done it many times, but that's what you need to get in your head. Will it work? Well, the only way I'm going to find out if it works is to try it. So I think a little bit more intent now. I'll show you the way I work. So I've got a lot of paint on the, well, not a vast amount, but I've got a fair amount of paint on my palette knife. When this edge doesn't have much on it, it becomes active when I turn it. So I put it on, make sure I got my horizontal. See, not much happens, but as I turn it over and then move it, it leaves a bigger amount of paint, like that. Hope you can see that. And that seems to be working reasonably successfully, quite like that. Okay, so where do I need to go with this next? I think over there. Every now and then, I mean, all your lines don't have to be horizontal. Every now and then you could actually put in one of these lines that goes this way. Why not? I hope you can see that. Maybe I'll just try zooming in, see whether you can see it. Okay, so it's here, and the reason I do that, I'll just make it slightly stronger, just a line like so, and maybe another one there. Adds a bit of interest to it. I always recommend to my students when they come here, when you paint a field, don't just paint a green patch. Not many fields are actually just green patches. There's all kinds of colours in it, unless it's one of these crops that's just had everything else that grows in it eliminated. Fields will have different textures and different colours in them. I mean, you could add a bit of red into some of these fields just to show where something isn't quite right, because frankly nothing is perfect. There's a little bit there I might do this effect on. I think that line coming down there, I don't want a line that goes all the way through here. I might juxtapose it slightly so I've got another one here, but not at quite the same angle. If I make it, instead of coming down this way, if I make it more that way, it will suggest that the land actually changes its angle slightly. Okay, I think that's probably it for this video. If I decide to do anything else to it, I will make another video. I don't want to bore you to death, but by recycling the same painting every time. My next video, I'm going to be working on another painting I started a few weeks ago, but I'm still waiting for it to dry, and that'll pop up soon. Shouldn't be too long. So there we are. So before I go, I hope you've enjoyed it as usual. I hope you come back for more. And while you're listening to me rambling on, I'm just going to get some white paint and just see what happens when I add some white. So yeah, if you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel. I'm aiming for the. I'm just going to put a little bit of white in there, which might suggest water. Who knows? Yeah, I'm struggling to get to the magic 100,000 subscribers. I think I've got 29,000 to go. And it's just a little milestone in my life, that's all. It'd be nice to get there. Please leave a comment. Keep it polite. I don't do rude. If you are rude, you'll never see me again. I will eliminate you. And if you are going to be rude, think to yourself before you do it, why am I doing this? Why do I need to be rude? If you don't like something, move on, go somewhere else, and try and think of something positive to do. So there we are. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Hope this one isn't going to work out too long, keeping it as short as possible, but I am rambling on a bit. And yeah, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button next to it, and you'll know when I next upload a video. If you have questions, I'm more than pleased to answer them. It may take me time to get back, and sometimes I don't answer questions if there's something that you've missed in the video and you're asking why it isn't there. I'll put a couple of numbers in the comment, and if you click on that, it should take you to the bit in the video that you might have missed. It's quite a useful little tool, that. So yeah, have a nice day, stay safe, and see you next time. Take care.